there is a very strong tension between the worldview of the old and the worldview of the new. So what I've come up with, and what I'm still working on, obviously it's going to be a work in progress hopefully for my whole life, is that issues of worldview are best resolved in the medium of storytelling, because everybody can appreciate the heroic narrative. Even if the hero is different in the Western tradition and in the Russian tradition, the hero's journey is the same. There's a structure to it.
About that,
yeah, it's all the same. There is no difference in the hero's journey in Eastern, Western, African, South American, North. It doesn't matter. They all have very, very similar rhythms to the structure of the hero's journey, in their fairy tales, in their legends, in their creation myths, in the way that they see themselves, and even the way that Americans with their self-starter mentality see themselves. There is still an element of the hero's journey to it. It's just not complete, because it doesn't like to have the element of the mentor. It doesn't like to have the element of the dark night of the soul. And it doesn't like to have the element of the return to home, having been changed and then changing home in the process.
Right.
This is something that the BLM and all of these social justice movements forget about, is that they can be as angry as they like with as much justification as you want. But what they're talking about is external change on top of internal sameness. And that's like putting on a mask and hoping the mask is going to change the shape of your face. That doesn't happen. You need to change internally to manifest the external difference. But that's hard, because that means that you have to go through, you as an individual, you as a movement, you as a country, you as a race, have to go through the whole cycle of the hero's journey, which includes the joy of discovery, but it also includes the pain of loss and the near-death encounter, from which you cannot save yourself. I want to bring your attention to the fact that the response of so many people to the racial injustice has been digital blackface. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have.
So that's not about equality. That's about guilt. That's about, I have this thing inside me that will never go away, that is eating away at me. So I want to do everything possible to externally cover that shame and cover that pain. But equality can only come through the faith that says there is neither Greek nor Jew.
Yeah.
Because how else are you going to have it? Because this world is it's rigged. The world is rigged, and human nature is rigged against us. And you talked about original sin, and I think if we could get back to that point, in my understanding, as storyteller, original sin is the inevitable tendency for human beings, when left to their own devices, to make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And that choice not only rebounding on themselves, but rebounding on everyone else around them. So unless you submit yourself willingly to an impartial and objective ideal, and that ideal by definition has to be divine, otherwise it's going to be fallible just like you are, then you're not going to succeed. Let's just be honest about our basic desires and wants for our lives. And let's just be honest about what are the things that make us happy, and what are the things that give us meaning, and what are the things that stay with us. All of those things reflect self-sacrifice, overcoming problems of selfhood versus otherhood, and overcoming great odds with the help of some force outside of yourself that is not dependent on you.
Right.
This is a universal aspect of life, of storytelling. It's not by accident that Christ embodies it. Christ embodied it because that is what it means to be human. And what the Orthodox believe, what doesn't come through in the theology of Western Christianity, is that Christ recapitulated all of human experience on purpose, not by accident. So all the things that he did and all the things that we see then reflected in our stories and in our lives, that happened because he has a very specific point to it all, which is he took it all on himself, and then he ascended into the heavens and sat at the right hand of God. He is God, therefore paving a path for humanity to achieve God status. So yeah, all that stuff about the Noah Yuval Harari and Homo Deus and like making a superhuman intelligence inside a silicon body. It's the same thing. They all want, yeah, well, I know, but they all want godhood. And why do they want godhood? Because that's part of human nature. And it's only proven by the life of Christ. Most people, when they relate to history or the way that people in the past viewed their history, not the way we view history, but the way people in the past viewed both their present and their history. When we're looking at them and by reading old books or by reading hagiographies or encountering texts from a different worldview, we don't have a conversation with them, meaning we don't accept them at face value. We don't think that what they have to tell us has any value whatsoever. But if that were the case, and if we would compare that to a conversation between two actual people in a single room, that would be like me sitting down at a table with a notebook in my hand, asking a bunch of annoying questions to that person over there, listening to their answer and never answering their questions and just jotting down ideas. Like, okay, that's what you think, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Freud and his,
that is what it's like.
Yeah. And that's an unnatural way of relating to anything. So if you're not going to relate to another person sitting across from you at the table while you're having coffee like that, why are you relating to history in that way? Why are you treating the people who've come in the past as though they're stupid or underformed or unable to have a fully illumined and enlightened view of the world? Why not have the mind experiment, the kind of thought experiment of accepting what they have to say as potentially true and just being in that space for a little bit?
Yeah.
Just read it and accept it that this is what they thought was true. And just be there for a while. Because what we forget is that other people in times past thought differently than we do.
Yeah.
And look, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I am taking full advantage of the new unknown. I'm largely self-employed. The opportunities that the internet offers for creative professionals to actually make a living would have been unheard of under the old system. So I'm okay with the new world and living in it. But having one foot in the old, I am aware of the fact that what the new is doing is starting to repeat the cycle of what the old set up. They're trying. What it looks like to me is that we're trying to build another hierarchy with the same perversions of the old, just with other people on top. Because we saw it happen in the 20th century. The revolutions, which were supposed to equalize everything, they were supposed to make an interconnected world of equals, ended up in record time setting up tyrannies that killed more people than all of the twisted old hierarchies had destroyed ever. Take the entire history of Western civilization and the number of deaths based on the wars of religion and compare it to World War II. It's not even close. The numbers that people that died in World War II, it's not even close. People don't realize this. They think that, all those people that died because of Christian hatred throughout history, that's way more people. It's not.
No.
We can't understand what hundreds of millions means. We don't know what that means of dead people. It's not a number that is, it doesn't make sense.
But I guess humans will do things again, won't they?
Yeah, you just hope for the cycles to take a little bit of time in between them. And if we go through another cycle of the 20th century in the 21st, that'll almost be unfair because we just got out of it. You'd think our historical memory would be fresh enough that we wouldn't immediately repeat the mistakes of our parents. But the rhetoric of revolution is always very enticing, especially if your life is empty. And the problem now is that we've embraced a distracted life because of our gadgets, because of our addictions to Facebook and things like this so completely that we don't even know that our lives are terrible and that we hate them. All we can recognize is the very, very strong reactions that we have to external forces that push us here and there.
Right.
And that's a really dangerous place to be in. It's a very dangerous place to be.
Well,
I think the story is the death of a very particular kind of culture. And it's a Western culture, and it's a culture that was steeped in Christianity, but is trying its best to cut the umbilical cord before the new organism is able to breathe on its own, which is why it's in death throes. The looming reality of the machine is the template that is the most appropriate to replace, or rather to fit in to that space that is created by the death of this civilization. Because it's stable, because it has straight lines, because it can run on itself, because it can provide what we think we want, which is comfort.
Yeah, and order.
And order.
Yeah.
And a lot of order.
Yeah. That's the terrifying part.
Yeah. I think there's no way out of it. The only way is through, right? To get through it. I don't, Kingsnorth's point, and I think I agree with him, is that the machine it doesn't have a beating heart in its chest. It can only run as long as the cogs, on some sense, agree to keep it running.
For sure.